Welcome back to our live streaming. So, wag na tayo magpatumpik-tumpik pa. Let's get started. Okay. Actually, itong sa Module 3, it's welcome back to our live streaming.
Okay, so reading is extremely important in learning new language.
Let's get started.
To be able to read fluently, an individual needs to recognize
Actually, itong
sounds
sa
and
Module
patterns,
3, it's
comprehend
welcome
about
back to
reading,
our live
understand
streaming.
how the word
So, wag
extremely
na tayo
important in
magpatumpik-tumpik
learning
pa.
new
Let's
language.
get started.
To be able to read
Okay.
fluently, an individual needs to recognize
Actually, itong
sounds
sa
and
Module
patterns,
3, it's
comprehend
welcome
about
back to
reading,
our
successfully find proficiency in the skill. In doing so, we will cover how to work on beginning reading skills, how to transition into more difficult decoding, and how new readers can gain meaning from what they are reading. Okay, there are 5 parts in this module. Number 1, developing reading skills. Number 2, auditory and visual discrimination. Number 3, forming associations. Number 4, decoding. And number 5, reading for purpose. Okay, so anyway, I assume that you have gone through already these modules 3 and 4, kagaya nung napag-usapan natin kahapon, right? That you will read it ahead or prior to our tutorial today para mas madali or mas mabilis yung gagawin nating tutorial para dito sa modules 3 and 4. Okay, save and continue. 3.1, developing reading skills. Okay, so under that is the first bullet or the first part. 3.1.1, beginning to read. As you approach reading with your students, it is important to remember they may be coming from different backgrounds and therefore may need different levels of instructions. Okay? Kaya kailangan talaga alam natin yung cultural background ng students natin. Okay? For students whose original language does not share the English alphabet, that is where you need to start. For students that share an alphabet with English, it is important you go over the way words are sounded out, because even if the students are familiar with the English alphabet, the sounds of this new language will likely be unique and somewhat foreign. Okay, kagaya kunyari yung Tagalog and English, right? Sa atin yung vowel a, e, i, yung vowels a, e, i, o, u, right? But vowels in English is different, completely different. Alright, so a, e, i, o, a. Okay, sa English, merong long and short vowels. And alam natin yan. Ang yung binanggit ko kanina, alright, those are short vowels. Ngayon, ang long vowels, yun din yung name ng alphabet or ng letter, which are A, E, I, O, and U. Okay? So, phonemic awareness. Alright, we already discussed phonemes in detail, alright, in the previous module. So, there are 3 bullets here about phonemes. Phonemes are unique to each language. So your students may have difficulty adjusting to learning new phonemes. Alright, your student may naturally think of phonemes in their native language, kagaya na sinabi ko kanina, which could be in direct contrast with English phonemes. Alright, and last bullet, making phoneme awareness fun and active is an effective way to increase engagement and understanding. Okay, so conforme sa ESL sa ESL company, right? May iba kagaya nun sa pinagtrabahuhan ko dati sa YECO. Pwede kami mag-upload, alright? Makakapag-upload kami ng sarili naming video or ng learning material. Although provided din nila yung learning materials. So, additional lang yung sa amin kung paano namin mai-present dun sa student yung lesson. Alright, so most of the time, ang ginagawa ko, nag-upload ako from YouTube, right? Especially when it comes to phonemes, may mga songs doon or games, and easier to understand, right? Pero dito sa Palfish,
provided na lahat and hindi ka makakapag upload ng video. Okay, so let's move on, save and continue. 3.1.2, beginning to read. Okay, eto na, phonics, alright, learning the alphabet, letter sound correlation, concepts of print. Okay, so let's begin with the phonics. The concept behind phonics is students begin to see and understand patterns in how phonemes relate to each other. Okay, once they recognize these patterns, students can easily sound out words that are foreign to them. This can also help them understand meaning when they see patterns in root words, prefixes, and suffixes. However, English is notorious for straying away from patterns, so while phonics can be a helpful tool, it certainly has its shortcomings. Okay, so what about learning the alphabet? Some of your students may not need to learn the alphabet because the English alphabet is the same as their native language's alphabet. However, if your students do need to learn the alphabet because it is very different than how their native language is structured, you cannot skip this step. All right? So we cannot skip this step. Right? Especially sa mga Chinese students natin, Japanese, Koreans, hindi English yung alphabet nila, right? Okay, next is letter sound correlation. We will discuss this in more detail later in the module, but whether your students are familiar with the alphabet or not, learning the correlation between letters or graphemes and sounds, phonemes, is extremely important because sounds are unique to a language. Many of these sounds and combinations of sounds will be difficult for your students to get used to, so make sure that you practice a lot. Okay. Kailangan talaga natin ng lesson planning, okay, when it comes to teaching them how to read. Okay, concepts of print. Alright, some of the concepts of print we discuss here will be relevant to students who come from different backgrounds. Okay, so once again, pasok dito yung about sa cultural background. Alright, so alam na natin kung halimbawa sa Palfish, alam natin ang mga students natin are Chinese. Alright, so mas makakapag-prepare tayo because we know that they are not really familiar with English alphabet. Okay, so first bullet, the English language is read from left to right. Okay, hindi siya kagaya ng I'm not sure. Okay, pero sa Arabic, they read from right to left, right? So, baligtad. They read from here, excuse me, from right to left. Alright. Unlike English, left to right. That's how we read it. Okay, so madali sa atin, no? Beginning to read. Okay? Pero, pag sa kanila, paano ang basa? For example, read. Okay, sa kanila, dare. Maybe. Alright, malamang ganon kasi left to right sila. Okay, next, the English language is read from top to bottom. Okay, so usual way para sa atin, ayun yung normal way, no? Okay, letters and words convey messages, of course. When you get to the end of a line on the right, you need to return to the beginning of the next line to the left. Okay, so always from left to right, okay? The illustrations in a book correspond to the words written there. Okay, lastly is decoding. We will discuss decoding in more detail in a future section, so we will only brief touch on it here. Once your students have built up their phonemic awareness, their knowledge of the alphabet, and their letter-sound correlation, decoding helps them put everything together to pronounce new words. Okay. Ganyan din yung itinuturo ko sa anak ko. Kaya, I'm so proud kasi 4 years, at the age of 3, okay, nakakabasa na siya. Right. And expert na sa pagbabasa. Siya na yung nagbabasa ng story para sa amin. Okay, save and continue. 3.1.3 Advanced Reading Skills. Once your students have built up confidence with the basics of reading, your next step is to help them develop proficiency in more advanced reading skills. Alright, first, summarizing. Mhm. It is an extremely important skill because it helps your students bridge the gap between understanding the words they are reading and understanding the meaning those words are trying to convey. Okay, and so on. All right, I assume that you have read this already, right? Finding the main idea, important facts, and supporting details. While summarizing requires a student to understand the main idea of a text, it is important to discuss this separately. Okay, so bakit separately? Sabi dito, once students have summarized the text, you can ask questions that get to the main idea, like what is the point that the writer is trying to make? Questions like this allow the students to take the step from summarizing the entire text to pinpointing what is important. Okay, next is sequencing. It is to take a step beyond summarizing. All right. Whereas summarizing concerns itself with understanding what happened, sequencing requires students to label, categorize, and compartmentalize what happens in the text. Very usual to sa Fish. Ang dami nilang ganito, kunyari sa reading or listening skills ng students. After that, they will answer. Okay, idadrag nila yung picture dun sa sentence. Alright? And, or otherwise, gagawin nila itong sequencing. Alright, next is relating background knowledge. Alright, it is always helpful that you relate what they are learning to their background knowledge. Kung may time kayo. Alright, depende yon kung forme. For example, free talk and something, mas madali na ma-relate nyo sa background knowledge. Otherwise, kung provided yung lesson material, pwede nyo pa rin siyang maisingit in a simpler way. Okay, save and continue. 3.1.4 Advanced Reading Skills. Making inferences. Okay, so once your students begin improving their ability to understand English text, the next step is to improve their ability to make inferences. Okay, so what does it mean? It means accessing meaning not explicitly stated. Okay, ayan na. For example, if a man were to walk into the room closing an umbrella, you would make the inference it was raining outside. No one specifically told you that it was raining, but you were able to use context clues to draw that conclusion. So once students are comfortable understanding what they read, working on their inferential thinking will help them learn to see meaning in a text that is not explicitly stated. Okay, dyan na rin pumapasok yung common sense. Okay, next is drawing conclusions. This idea goes hand in hand with inferential thinking. In order to accurately draw a conclusion, a student needs to understand the literal meaning of a text and how that literal meaning can lead to a conclusion. Next is comparing and contrasting. Okay, ito na yung sa mga advanced reading skills natin, no? Marunong na rin tayong mag-compare and contrast. Next is distinguishing between fact and opinion. Okay. Next, self-questioning. And lastly, it's about problem solving. Okay, so these are self-explanatory. Okay, kagaya nung nakita natin kanina, yung inferences. So once na mabasa na natin itong comparing and contrasting, alam na natin kung ano yung ibig sabihin nito. Even though I do not have to really explicitly state the meaning of this. Yes, nagamit natin. Alright, so save and continue. Okay, so 3.2, auditory and visual discrimination. So both auditory and visual discrimination refer to our ability to perceive and distinguish between different elements. And the best way to understand these two concepts is by looking at each individually. So 3.2.1, auditory discrimination. Alright, it refers to our brain's ability to organize and categorize sounds, thereby allowing us to make meaning of what we hear. While auditory refers to sound and reading is typically done silently, the ability to distinguish between different sounds or phonemes can affect our ability to sound out and identify vocabulary. Alright, the inability to effectively access one's auditory discrimination can impair someone's reading tremendously, especially when students are asked to read out loud. If someone has trouble with auditory discrimination, they will have trouble. Okay. First bullet, understanding phonemes and how they are different. That's why phonemes talaga yung napakaunang itinuturo, di ba? Yung sounds, and then later on, understanding the letters, okay, mga sight words, and so on. Next is learning to read. As we already discussed, the early reading strategies rely heavily on a student's ability to understand and distinguish between different sounds. And lastly, sometimes struggles with auditory discrimination can affect a student's ability to focus on what they are reading because they have difficulty blocking out background noise. Ay, isa ako dyan. Alright, so just because someone suffers from an auditory discrimination disorder does not mean they cannot learn a new language. Okay, a disorder like this simply provides an obstacle on the path to success. So, obstacle lang, but it doesn't stop you to succeed. Alright? So, hindi ito magiging hadlang para sa isa na matutunan ang new language. Save and continue. 3.2.2, visual discrimination. Natapos na natin yung auditory. Ngayon, visual naman tayo. It refers to an individual's ability to distinguish between letters, shapes, numbers, and objects. While both are important, visual discrimination is much more impactful on an individual's ability to read than auditory discrimination. Okay, so mas grabe pala ang impact nitong visual kaysa dun sa auditory discrimination. Alright, so auditory discrimination affects an individual's ability to sound words out, but visual discrimination affects an individual's ability to recognize which letters he or she is seeing. Alright. Ito na yung mga bullets dito. The students has trouble identifying letters and learning the alphabet. Okay, the difficulty will be recognizing letters rather than an inability to remember what they are called. Okay, so they can recognize, but they cannot remember what they are called, right? So difficulty telling the difference between similar letters like B and D. Alright, sa mga younger kids, ano pa to, normal pa ito sa kanila. So don't push your kids na agad-agad matutunan nila ito. Similar numbers like 6 and 9 and or similar shapes like circles and ovals. Alright, happy lang ako kasi yung mga Junakis ko hindi naman nagkaroon ng trouble identifying or telling the difference between these kagaya ng examples dito. Next, difficulty differentiating between words that have similar beginnings or endings. Okay, Visual discrimination issues, just like auditory discrimination issues, can be overcome, but reading is much more important for much more difficult for people with visual discrimination disorders. Here are some potential classroom exercises that you can use to help students who struggle with visual discrimination disorders or deficiencies. Using visuals that are bright and colorful to help students work on distinguishing between clear shapes and colors. Alright, so using digital tools such as a laptop or tablet that can help make working on visual discrimination fun for the students. Alright, ito yung motivation, no? Make learning about visual discrimination fun by using games or puzzles that require the student to differentiate shapes or letters. Okay, save and continue. 3.3, Forming Associations. So, ito yung mga bullets about dito. Alright? Ito yung mga basic principles behind teaching a student how to form strong letter sound associations. First is assessment. Okay. Second, sequential and systematic instruction. Alright. Next is teach explicitly. And do not focus just on reading. Okay, so basahin natin itong mga basic principles. Sa assessment, okay, every student is different. Kaya kapag nagtuturo tayo, makikita natin doon kung ano yung level ng student, no? So, ibe-base natin, kailangan adaptive learning yung gagawin natin dun sa mga students natin. Next is sequential and systematic instruction. While pedagogy often dictates, you let the students guide their own learning. A skill like this needs to be taught systematically and sequentially. Okay, in many ways, basic skills like this works best with old school instructions, which means you teach a concept, assess for that concept, teach another concept, assess for both concepts, etc. Alright, teach explicitly. Alright, when teaching letter sound associations, it is important to be explicit about your teaching. That means you are clear with your students about what you are teaching them. What they are learning and why they are learning it. The more you get the students to buy into the process, the more success you will have. And lastly, do not focus just on reading. So learning letter sound associations is not just a reading skill. It is multi-sensory. Therefore, you should treat your instruction as a multi-sensory skill. Use whatever resources you have available to help students make the associations they need to use. Alright. You can use flashcards, pictures, digital games, and any other modes of learning you can think of to get the job done. In this way, you will help your students in more than just their reading. Okay, ako ang ginagawa ko, aside from the flashcards, minsan tinuturuan ko rin sila ng sign language. Okay, sa mga students ko, doble ang natututunan sa akin. Not just English, but also sign language. Save and continue. Alright, 3.4, Decoding. Once you have your students form strong associations between letter and sounds, the next step is decoding, which refers to displaying those associations by turning written words into speech rapidly. This is an essential part of language and is displayed when your students read aloud. Okay, na-touch na natin kanina itong decoding, pero ito yung more details about it. So, 3.4.1, Common Questions about Decoding. Why is decoding important? Alright, because it is the basis for most reading comprehension skills. An inability to decode words lead to an inability to identify and understand vocabulary. a difficulty building fluency, and difficulty with overall reading comprehension. Alright, how can you tell if a student is struggling with decoding? Students who are having trouble decoding often believe they are stuck or reading is something they are bad at. Here are some symptoms to look out for to identify students who are struggling. All right. First, the student feels stuck when they need to read a lot of words because they cannot focus enough of their attention on any one word. Okay, so ito yung mga bullets na to, yung ilan sa mga symptoms para masabi natin, para ma-distinguish natin or ma-identify natin if the student is struggling with decoding. Alright, so number 2, the student spends so much energy. Alright, so they spend so much time para ma-decode yung words. Alright, and lastly, number 3, the student complains that he or she simply does not know how to sound words out. Okay, and this is usually a sign of frustration at the energy it is taking to decode the words being presented to them. Number 4, the student can identify letters and sounds and even the relationship between the two, but struggle putting them together in a short amount of time. Okay, learning is a process naman, no? So as long as we know how to do it, that's why we are given this module para alam din natin yung symptoms para ma-identify natin itong mga common problems or malaman natin kung nag-struggle ba sa student. So, magagawa natin yung part natin para maturuan sa student ng tamang paraan to decode. Alright, remember that these observations can reflect anything from a student struggling with a new skill to a student having a learning disability inhibiting his or her ability to decode words. Alright, save and continue. So 3.4.2 Common questions about decoding. How do I teach decoding to my students? Alright, here are some simple ways you can help your students improve their decoding skills in your classroom. Number 1, when you are teaching a sound, use visuals to reinforce their knowledge of sounds and ask the students to say the sound out loud as practice. Yes, out loud dapat. Kasi mapapractice din yung auditory nila. This will help the students improve the speed at which they can decode and also stimulate more of their senses as they learn, making it more memorable and impactful. Okay, use phonics to give them more practice sounding out phonemes and building to sounding out words. Use relevant reading and writing assignments that relate to what you are teaching. Alright, and don't be afraid to use methods to ask students to use their hands. Using manipulatives is a great way to help students learn on a higher level and ensure that the information you are teaching makes its way to the students' long-term memory. Alright, now you can try grouping your students homogeneously so you can address specific problems or struggles in pockets of students to make your job a little easier. Okay, ito pumapasok to kapag meron kang group class, alright, or nasa classroom ka talaga. Pero since most of the time one-on-one naman yung student mo, alright, one-on-one naman kayo ng student mo, so ma-identify mo siya agad-agad. Save and continue. Alright, last page na tayo ng Module 3, Reading. 3.5, Reading for Purpose. Alright, alamin natin kung ano-ano ba itong mga simple strategies that will help your students read with purpose effectively. Okay, magiging bookworm na sila. Teach your students to be reflective about their reading. Reading is an active skill, not a passive occurrence. If a child loves playing baseball, he cannot express to sit on the court and let basketball happen. He needs to try. The same principle applies to reading. Encourage your students to be aware of their reading, what works for them, what helps them, and to have the follow through to do what they need to do in order to read more effectively. All right, make sure your students understand the purpose for which they are reading something. If you take a passage completely out of context, it is not going to make such sense, right? Invite the students to the process of seeing or setting a purpose. And lastly, model active reading for your students. Okay, so many teachers like to tell their students to annotate a piece, but don't like to show them what it means to annotate a piece. Okay, a good way to do this is to take the first section of whatever you are going to have them read and go over it as a class. Okay, so ito yung the best way. Ganito rin yung teaching method nila dito sa Norway actually. Hindi basta ipapabasa lang ni teacher sa student. Siya muna ang mag-uumpisa. Then, ipaparepeat niya sa student. Ganon din yung gagawin natin, right? So, if you're able to take a student who does not know English and take him or her from sounding out letters to reading actively and fluently, you'll know you have been successful. Save and continue. Okay, so natapos na natin yung module 3. Ngayon mag-e-exam na tayo. Are you ready? Okay. So let's see kung tama yung mga sagot nyo. Alright, so number 1, why is phonemic awareness important no matter what native language a student speaks? Okay, so there's only one answer, which is letter D. Phonemes are unique to a language. All right. Check result, save and continue. Number 2, which of the following are advanced reading strategies? All right, there are 3 answers here, kagaya ng natutunan natin kanina. Alright, ang mga strategies are letter B, summarizing, letter C, sequencing, and letter D, identifying main ideas. Alright, ito na yung nagpapakita na advanced na yung reading strategies or reading skills ni student. Check result, save, and continue. Number 3, why is reading considered an active process? Okay, there's only one answer, which is letter B. It is an active process because it requires effort. Kailangan naman talaga ng effort sa pagbabasa. Okay, so check result, save, and continue. Number 4, which of the following are suggestions for teaching students to form letter-sound association? Okay, so there are 3 answers here. A, assessments. Okay, ito yung forming of the letter-sound associations. A, assessments. C, explicit instruction. And letter D, multi-sensory teaching. Okay, so check result, save, and continue. Kita nyo naman, 100% pa rin yung result natin dyan. Okay, so number 5, what is decoding? Okay, decoding is letter C, rapidly turning written word into speech. Okay, so that is decoding. Alright, check result, save, and continue. Number 6, confirm if the following statements are true or false. Letter A, it is a good habit to ask yourself questions as you read the text. Yes, it is. So, it is true. Okay, kanina na-discuss natin ito, no? Yung asking yourself a question about dun sa text. And letter B, the first reading skill you should teach is how to compare and contrast. Of course, it is false. All right, so all the time it's phonemes, right? So, last number, susunod. Pero una muna, check result, save, and continue. Okay, so number 7, why is reading for purpose a higher level of thinking than comprehension? Okay, there are two answers. Letter A, because reading for purpose requires a comprehension of implicit ideas. And letter D, because reading for purpose allows students to extend meaning. So, why is reading for purpose a higher level of thinking than comprehension? It's not only about comprehending, okay? Comprehension. Okay. Dun sa reading comprehension ay magkaiba kaysa dito sa reading for purpose. Alright, so kita naman natin, ang result natin is 100% and natapos na natin ang Module 3. Save and continue and let's get ready for Module 4. Let's continue sa Module 4, which is about writing. So, reading serves as the basis for understanding a new language. Writing gives the opportunity to explore the new language. Now that your student is able to comprehend the English language as he or she reads it, it is time to put the student in charge of using that language to convey his or her meaning. Okay, learning to write in a new language can be very challenging because you need to have the same basis of knowledge as you would for reading, but you also need the ability to create those words to represent your thoughts and ideas. In this module, we will discuss the basics of writing in English, including how to craft a sentence, how to make words work together, and how to explore the language through writing. Okay, so there are 4 parts in this module. Part 1, the sentence structure. Part 2, grammar. Part 3, informative and explanatory writing. And Part 4, persuasive writing. Save and continue. 4.1 Sentence Structure. In your studies of reading and comprehension, your students have developed some basic skills in understanding the language as they come across it. Now that they have a basic understanding of English, sounds and words, it is time to help them learn how to put those words and sounds together to create sentences that convey meaning. We will start at the beginning and look at how sentences are structured in the English language. 4.1.1 Basic Sentence Patterns. Okay, what are the basic sentence patterns? Kagaya nung sinabi ko nung nakaraan, di ba, yung mga subject and verb, and object. Okay, so makikita natin yun dito sa yung 5 basic sentence patterns. Umpisahan muna natin sa subject and verb. Right? Kaya meron tayong subject and verb agreement. Right? So these are the examples. Mark ran. Alright? So Mark is the subject. Ran is the verb. As we all know, verb is the action word. Right? Next, Maria slept. Okay? The dog plays. Jimmy fell. Now, this is the second pattern. Alright. Subject, verb, object. Alright. So, S, V, and O. Sentences that follow these patterns are very similar to subject and verb sentences, except an object has been added to the sentence. In an English sentence, the object is the thing that is being acted upon by the subject. Okay, so in other words, the noun or the subject is acting verb upon another noun, which is the object. Here are a few examples of sentences. Okay, so Mark, which is the subject, ran verb to the store. Okay, so store, it is another noun, but it is acted upon by the subject, right? So store is the object in this sentence. And so on. Maria slept in bed. The dog plays outside. Jimmy fell to the floor. Save and continue. Let's continue. The next or the third basic sentence pattern is subject, verb, adjective. Okay, so this sentence pattern is similar to subject, verb, object, except the object is not a noun but an adjective. Okay, so you can read the further explanations later on or even now. All right. Okay, here are the examples. Mark is hungry. Maria was tired. The dog looks playful. And Jimmy seems dumpsy. All right, we all know what an adjective means, right? We all know what adjective is. Okay, so it describes the noun. As what we can see in these examples here. Next one, subject, verb, adverb. Okay, to the untrained eye, this sentence pattern is the same as the previous one, which is the subject, verb, adjective, right? The difference between the pattern and this pattern, however, is while that structure saw the object turning into an adjective, this one sees it turning into an adverb. Okay, in other words, the verb no longer acts as a state of being to set up a description of the subject, but rather the words following the verb act as modifiers to the verb. Here are a few examples. Mark ran quickly. Maria slept peacefully. The dog plays loudly. And Jimmy fell disastrously. Okay, dun na tayo sa last basic sentence pattern. Okay, subject, verb, noun. As you already know, the object of a pattern has to be a noun. However, just because there is a noun following the verb does not mean that it is the object of the sentence. In this sentence structure, the noun is not the object because, like with subject, verb, and adjective, the words following the verb describe the object. Here are a few examples of the sentences that follow the subject-verb pattern. Okay, first, Mark is the store owner. Next, Maria is a doctor. Third one, the dog was a corgi. And lastly, Jimmy became a lawyer. Save and continue. The next part is about clauses. Okay, so looking at the examples in the previous section, you may wonder what happens when the sentence get more complex. Okay, nakita natin at first yung 5 basic sentence patterns, right? Ngayon, magiging mas complex na yung sentence. Okay, it's not only about those patterns. That can certainly complicate things, but a sentence still follows one of the previous patterns or two of them if it is a complex sentence. Understanding the typical sentence patterns is helpful, but your students also need to understand the basic structures that dictates sentences in English. In order to understand these basic sentence structures, we need to first discuss clauses. Alright, what is it? Okay, clause. A clause is one of the basic units in English grammar and is a group of words that contain a subject and a verb. Every sentence has at least one clause because the requirements for a sentence and a clause are the same. However, a clause does not necessarily complete a thought. There are two types of clauses, and understanding both is important for students who are learning to write English. Okay, so what are the two types of clauses? First is the dependent clause, or we also call it subordinating clause. This is exactly what it sounds like. A clause or a group of words containing a subject and a verb that is dependent on another clause. Okay, in other words, it would not work alone as a sentence because it needs another clause for it to make sense, right? Okay, an example of a dependent clause is because the word is ending. Okay, so we see the noun and the subject and the verb there. The only thing that makes this clause dependent is the word because, which adds the implication of cause and effect to the sentence. We see the cause, but we need the effect to complete the sentence. So let's proceed to the independent clause or the other type of clause. An independent clause is a clause or group of words containing a subject and a verb that can exist by itself and be a complete thought and therefore a complete sentence. Okay, but and then if we combine these two clauses, one dependent and one independent in the previous example, we get a complex sentence. Okay, first let's give an example. Use the independent clause. All right, they went down to the bomb shelter. Mhm. All right, so iyon na yung independent kasi wala yung subordinating word na because. All right. So let's make let's read an example ng combination of dependent and independent clause. Because the word is ending, they went down to the bomb shelter. Okay, so nakita na natin yung dependent, nag-start siya sa subordinating clause which is, or subordinating word which is the word because. Okay, but since we combined them, naging isang buong sentence na siya. Alright, so this is a complete sentence with independent clause marked by a subordinating clause, presenting a cause, and an independent clause completing the thought with the effect. Save and continue. 4.1.4 Basic Sentence Structure. Okay, with dependent and independent clause under our belts, we can turn our attention back to sentence structure and look closely at how these clauses can work together to create and convey meaning. Okay, simple sentence. All right, Bobby drove his car to the store. Compound sentence. Bobby drove his car and Mark read the directions. Okay. Complex sentence. Bobby drove his car to the store to buy gum. Okay. Compound complex sentence. Bobby drove his car and Mark read the directions when they went to the store. So we see the differences between these sentences, right? Okay. Dun sa simple sentence, makikita natin that it only contains one independent clause and that stands alone in a complete thought. Kaya tinawag siya na simple sentence lang, right? Okay. And then, dun sa compound sentence naman, it contains two or more independent clause, kagaya yung nakita natin dito sa example. And these clauses could stand alone if needed to. For example, Bobby drove his car, Mark read the direction. But of course, we combined them. That's why we added and this word and. Complex sentence, okay. It includes an independent clause and one or more dependent clauses. Okay, this means that within the sentence, there are subject-verb pairs that would not be able to stand alone as a complete thought. Okay. And in this example, we borrowed the simple sentence and added the dependent clause to buy gum. Okay. Actually, pag sinabi natin buy gum, it is a complete sentence na rin, ano? But because of the subordinate word to buy gum, that's why it became dependent. The subject Bobby is implied by the independent clause, and this dependent clause cannot stand alone and make sense. Compound complex sentence. It includes at least 2 independent clauses and 1 or more dependent clauses, essentially combining the elements of a compound sentence with the elements of a complex sentence. Okay, save and continue. 4.2 Grammar. Understanding sentence structure is a key aspect of grammar, but there are other grammatical structures or grammatical rules important for your students to know and understand. Okay, so what are those? 4.2.1 Nouns, 1 of 3. Okay, as we discussed in an earlier module, a noun is a person, place, thing, or idea. Here are some different types of nouns. Proper nouns, the names of specific places, people or things. Common nouns, general or colloquial names. Concrete nouns, people, places, or things that are tangible. Abstract nouns, ideas that are intangible. Okay, nouns can be tricky because the terms encompasses a lot of different types of words. When using nouns, one of the grammatical structures or grammatical rules you need to look out for is whether you should pluralize a noun and how to do so. Okay, when does a noun get pluralized? Nabulol ako ay, sorry. Pluralized. Not every noun has a plural form because it does not always make sense for there to be more than one of something. Count nouns refer to nouns that can be counted, like cup, table, monkey. These nouns are specific objects that can be more than one. Non-count nouns are nouns that cannot be counted because they already represent a group of objects or a type of object. For example, water is a non-count noun because you cannot look at the ocean and count the water. Makes sense, right? Save and continue. 4.2.2 Nouns. Ito na yung 2 of 3. Okay, how do I pluralize a noun? The rules of pluralizing a noun are fairly simple, but since there are a lot of nouns that do not fit into any of these rules, the task of pluralizing can be taxing. Okay, here is a basic rundown of the general rules. Most nouns are made plural simply by adding an S. Yeah, cup, cups, egg, eggs, joke, jokes, mask, masks. Huh? No, it's not. Nouns ending in okay, CX, X or X, X or S or sounds require an addition of ES at the end. For example, bench, benches. Okay, box, boxes. Class, classes. Nouns ending in F or FE require you to change the F or FE to a V and add an ES. So, calf, calves. Half, halves. Knife, knives. Alright, some nouns do not follow any rules for pluralizing, and your students will simply have to learn them. So, child, children, mouse, mice, woman, women. Some count nouns are the same whether they are singular or plural. Moose, moose, deer, deer, species, species. Okay, save and continue. So this is the third class, possessive nouns. Alright, because nouns represent people, places, things, and ideas, they sometimes need to be possessive in order to show that the person, place, thing, or idea owns or is in possession of something. Possession is usually marked by an apostrophe and follows these rules. Okay, you can make most nouns possessive simply by adding an apostrophe and then an S at the end of the word. That's what we call apostrophe S. So mark, marks. It means marks. It marks thing or marks stuff. Dog, dogs. Boy, boys. When you come across a plural noun that ends in S or a noun that already ends in S, you can make it possessive by simply adding an apostrophe. Boys, boys. Okay, plural na to. So, para maging possessive pa rin siya, we will add apostrophe at the end. Okay, class, class, dogs, dogs. If you have one item, but you would like to express the two different people or things on it, you would add an apostrophe and an S after the last person's name. So, Bill and Frank's new house, Boxer and Spot's toy, Sally and Anne's car. If the objects owned by two different people and are separate things, then you should add an apostrophe and an S at the end of each name. So Bobby's and Mary's wedding rings are gold. Jill's and Samantha's jobs are difficult. Jean's and Yancy's tables are both oak. 7, continue. Next is 4.2.4, pronouns and antecedents. Okay, so we'll see here why is this important in writing. Okay, let's see the example here. Mike grabbed Mike's shirt and went to find Mike's mom to tell Mike's mom that Mike's mom needed to leave right away because Mike and Mike's mom were in danger. Okay, so we can see that it's quite repetitive, no, and choppy. So now let's use pronouns. Mike grabbed his shirt and went to find his mom to tell her that they needed to leave right away because they were in danger. Okay, so clearly the second example sounds much better and gets the point across without reusing the original nouns. Okay, the major thing your students need to understand about pronouns, besides the different types that exist, which we will discuss in this section, is that every pronoun needs an antecedent, or a noun that is taking the place of. The only exception is the indefinite pronouns, or is indefinite pronouns, which replace vague nouns like all or some. Okay, now let's look again at the second example above, which contains pronouns. Each of those pronouns has an antecedent, which you can see in the first example. Let's rewrite the second example, but this time we will include the antecedent to each pronoun in parentheses. Okay, Mike grabbed his, which is Mike's, shirt and went to go find his, alright, or Mike again, mom to tell her, or Mike's mom, that Mike and Mike's mom needed to leave right away because Mike and Mike's mom were in danger. Okay, so when a pronoun does not have a clear antecedent, the writing becomes very confusing, and it is hard to distinguish who is doing what. Here is an example of a sentence with unclear antecedents. Note how difficult it is to understand who the sentence is truly taking or talking about. Mark, John, and Billy went to the mall because he needed a new shirt. When they arrived, he ran to the clothing store and he ran after him, trying to keep up while he hung back and headed to the food court. Because the antecedents are unclear, you could not tell which boy went to the store, right? Which boy chased after and which boy went to the food court. Okay, save and continue. 4.2.5, types of pronouns. So here are the types of pronouns here. Actually, there are 9 different types of pronouns. Personal, possessive, indefinite, reflexive, reciprocal, intensive, interrogative, relative, and demonstrative. Okay, so review na lang sa atin ito, kasi napag-aralan na natin to nung high school, their, mine, ganyan. Indefinite, alright, everybody, somebody. Reflexive, myself, yourself. Okay, reciprocal, each other, one another. Intensive, himself. Okay, interrogative, who, which. Okay, so who took the candy and which door is it? Relative, whichever. Demonstrative, this and that. Okay, save and continue. Next, 4.2.6 verbs. Along with nouns, verbs are part of the two most important parts of a sentence. So it is important that your students know how to use them and the rules that govern English verbs. Verbs are extremely complicated because there are many different rules governing how verbs are used, but can be generally broken down into three categories: transitive, intransitive, and linking. We will look at each of these types to give your students a sense of how verbs work. Okay, so here are the categories of the verbs. Transitive verbs. Okay, here are the example. Brian hit the ball and ran to first. Okay, it means it is a verb that exists in a sentence with an object. Okay, the subject of the sentence is doing something to something else. Next is intransitive verbs. Okay, here's the example. Because the food was not free, she left. Okay, while she is leaving whatever place she is in, the object doesn't need to be expressed because the intransitive verb left is enough to describe the action. Okay, linking verbs. Okay, these avocados seem like they have not ripened yet. Okay, so the subject of the sentence, these avocados, is not acting upon anything else. So seem is a linking verb, describing the relationship to the rest of the sentence. Save and continue. 4.4, writing. Pasensya na sa background ha, gising na yung mga Junakis kuya. Informative and explanatory writing. Okay, so next, definition. In this type of writing, your students will define a topic and explain it in detail. Potential practical application. Okay, your student works in an office, and the sales team is trying to land a new client who works with industrial refrigeration parts. The boss asks your student to provide a report on industrial refrigeration parts, so the sales team are prepared when they pitch the client. Okay, next, breaking something into parts. Describing behavior or function, and also explaining why. Okay, that's why we call it informative and explanatory writing. Okay, save and continue. So, last page na tayo ng Module 4, Writing. So, this is the last part, persuasive writing. Okay, while persuasive writing is less utilized in most careers than informative and explanatory writing, it is still an important genre that can help your students in different aspects of their life. Okay, so what are the examples? All right. Or what are the different types of persuasive writing? First, thesis. Okay. Yan. Lahat yan na paghirapan natin nung college tayo. Next, organization, support, elaboration and analysis, and conclusion. Okay, if your students can master these basic components of a strong argument, you will find it much easier to be convincing whenever they are trying to persuade. Okay, save and continue. Are you ready for the exam for Module 4? Okay, number 1, which sentence pattern does the sentence Samuel ran to the store follow? Okay, the answer is letter B. Okay, subject, verb, and object. So this is the correct answer. Samuel is the subject, ran is the verb, and the store, which is another noun, is the object. Okay, so check result, save and continue. Number 2, which of the following are examples of independent clauses? Okay, so there are two answers here. First, they went to the movies. Okay, it is complete. It has a complete thought. Okay, next is she wants to go. So these two examples, letter A, or these two answers, letter A and letter C, are examples of independent clauses. Check result, save and continue. Number 3, which of the following is an example of compound sentence? Okay, so the correct answer here is letter D. Myrtle drove to the store and Calvin bought a soda. Okay, so check results, save and continue. Question number 4. Which of the following pairs provides a singular noun and its accurate plural form? Okay. Obviously, we know the answer already. Letter B, knife, knives. Okay, dun sa rules na pinag-aralan natin kanina. Kapag FE, if it ends with FE, then we will replace it with V, plus we will add ES. So, knife becomes knives. And beach, the ch, we will add ES, beaches. Okay, bench, benches. Alright, check result, save and continue. Question number 5. What is the word for the noun that a pronoun is replacing? Okay, number 5, the answer is letter C, antecedent. Okay, it is the word for the noun that a pronoun is replacing. Alright, check result, save and continue. Okay, it is false. In possessive nouns, possession is usually marked by an apostrophe. Okay, so that is true. Check result, save and continue. Remember the apostrophe S, okay? But if it's plural already, for example, boys shirts, then we just need to add an apostrophe. No need to add an S on it. Okay, save and continue. Question number 7. Which of the following is an important component of persuasive writing? There are 3 answers here, right? So thesis, letter B, support, letter C, and D, analysis. Check results, save, and continue. And so we're done with the tutorial for modules 3 and 4. So you see that your progress is already 40% and still your marks, okay, 100% pa rin. So thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and I'll see you tomorrow for modules 5 and 6. Okay? Thank you. Bye.